is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
It's 5 things to watch here on KC Sports Network. Thank you all so much for joining us. You're going to hear from a variety of personalities here on KC Sports Network and some outside of it. Thank you again. We appreciate you. Like I said, you're going to get one thing from 5 different shows. We're going to start here, KC Laboratory, with Maddie Lane and Craig Stout. Maddie, let's talk a little about zone coverage. Jaguars are going to play a lot of it, and the Chiefs are going to need to beat it.
Yeah, I think last week we saw the Lions come out and play a lot more zone coverage than anyone expected, including the Chiefs, and it really kind of threw a wrench into the Chiefs' plans. Now, this week, hopefully Travis Kelce returns, and that is going to bring back, one of the best zone-beating receivers of all time, but especially currently in the NFL, so that alone will help. But the Chiefs have to be a little bit more prepared. They can't run crosser after crosser, mesh route after mesh route, and hope it beats zone coverage. They have to have some more answers besides, hey, Travis Kelce, you're really good. You can find the open spot here. Obviously, they are going to get some of that. Kelce, if able to play, will be back. He will immediately fix some of these issues. I also expect Andy Reid to be a little bit better or a little bit more prepared, partially because it's not a surprise if the Jags play zone coverage. That's what they base their defense out of. And also, I think he was a little upset with himself during that game last week. He didn't put wide receivers in the best position to beat it, get Kelce back, get everyone on the same page, Craig. And I do think we see a better performance against some zone defense this week.
I do. And I don't think it matters whether or not the Jaguars are going to play cover 3 as much as they did against the Indianapolis Colts, where they gave plenty of space underneath. Or if they line up and play a little bit of cover 2, I think Andy Reid's going to come out with a good game plan. I think we're going to see a lot of smash concepts. That's a hitch underneath. It's something that would be very good to help beat cover 3 with a corner route over the top, something that's very good to beat cover 2. Layer it on there in ways that make it easy mode for these guys. I can see them getting a little bit more aggressive as far as the Jaguars are, trying to take away some of these explosive plays, trying to come up and hit these wide receivers a little bit more, maybe catch this team on a double move or two. MVS has been pretty good at kind of selling that curl and then breaking back upfield and getting vertical. I expect that the Chiefs are going to use a lot of vertical passing concepts with a lot of hitches, curls, flat routes underneath, try and really high-low this defense, stretch them out a little bit more, make them think twice about coming up and being aggressive, as well as still offering the big hitter over the top against zone defense.
It's kind of funny, Craig, you talking about smash and, with that outside receiver typically running that corner route. It's actually a really good leverage read from that slot receiver too when you're seeing cover 3 versus cover 2. So that's kind of an interesting thing because, most likely they're not running a corner route into a cover 3. It's going to be a vertical, like a seam route, or it's going to be something else, And so that's something that's, that's a good staple concept when you've got some receivers that are getting their feet wet, that are learning, that are understanding. And this team tried to run, a lot of crossing routes, and they were getting caught up in the middle of the field. And yeah, it'll be fascinating to see if they, maybe go back to some of the basic staples that a lot of these guys have run over the course of their career. Maddie, who do you think could be a benefactor if we see the Jacksonville Jaguars run a lot of zone coverage outside of Travis Kelce?
Yeah, no, that's a good caveat there. I think you just go back to all your receivers, right? You're coming in here, and we talked about it. The Chiefs ran a lot of crossers, but even when they weren't, you had a lot of guys drifting into zone coverages last week. There's the famous play where Kadarius Toney keeps going back and allows Jack Campbell to make a play. There's a couple times that Rashee Rice kept drifting into coverage, or Richie James. So I think all week, all these wide receivers probably spent a lot of time getting instructed on how to read out zone, where to find their marks, how to play this out. Like, I bet that was a big point of emphasis. So anyone playing out of the slot, Rashee Rice, we mentioned him. Richie James played out of the slot a lot. I think you're going to get Kadarius Toney in there. All these guys that play out of the slot, I think are the guys to kind of keep your eyes on to get some of these leveled out routes where they can flood certain areas, whether it's a corner, whether it's these deep spot routes over the football and not drifting too far. I think all those guys are really where you're going to get most of these targets funneled to.
I'm going to go with MVS. I know I mentioned him already as a guy who might hit some double moves, but it's going to be those vertical concepts, reading the leverage of the safeties, finding the space in between, those seams of the zones. I really think MVS does a good job of that. Inconsistent hands for sure. We all know the kind of roller coaster ride that comes with MVS, but there's never been a question about his ability to read the leverage of the safety, find those gaps in the zone, and be able to create space over the top of the defense there. I think that he is primed for a big day there, especially if him and Mahomes are clicking the way that it looked like they were in week 1.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how much the Jaguars do wind up playing zone coverage. The Chiefs did not handle it well without Travis Kelce. A lot of young guys got challenged. I think this is going to be a good opportunity if the Chiefs do indeed see the kind of zone coverage that we're anticipating here and the volume of it. It'll be a good opportunity for this group to respond. And, last week was a big learning opportunity for this group, especially without Travis Kelce. We'll see if it becomes a long-term valuable thing, if this group responds in a different way because of what happened. And, if they learn something, this is a great measuring stick for them. A big week 2 game, big opportunity for the Chiefs to bounce back against a very good AFC opponent that's going to be challenging them for seeding in the AFC. Plenty of other things to talk about. Now we're going to go to BJ Kissel and Lexi Osborn.
I'm BJ Kissel, hanging out with Lexi Osborn from the Kingdom Queens podcast. Make sure to follow them on social media at Kingdom Queens. Follow them on YouTube, and they record live on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Lexi, we appreciate you for joining us on 5 Things to Watch.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here with you guys.
Yes, we are not happy that the Chiefs lost the first game of the season, and the offense, the word I used, Lexi, was sloppy.
Yes.
Not just because of the drops, but there were some route running, bunch formation things that just you aren't used to seeing with an Andy Reid team, especially with Patrick Mahomes. We've seen this in the past where they haven't looked great and they always come out on fire the next week. I think that's going to end up being the case here. But what I really want to talk about with you is the Jags offense, and specifically the new name, the new face that they got on the team this year for an offense we were talking about before we were recording that's already kind of on the up and up. Last year, we saw with Trevor Lawrence, Evan Ingram, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. They've got some talented playmakers, and then they added Calvin Ridley to the mix.
Right. So they were already an incredibly talented offense, and they really only got better. And really, their team overall hasn't changed a ton since we played them last. I would say our team has changed way more. So I'm very interested to see what Spags is going to dial up for this offense, because they are incredible. And Calvin Ridley, he is a crazy route runner. He's going to be hard to stop. He's going to be someone you have to cover with bracket coverage. And I'm interested to see what we dial up for him. I think you're going to have Trent McDuffie probably on Christian Kirk. And I think you're going to see like a mix of Snead and maybe Brian Cook and some other guys over on Calvin Ridley. So, but we are adding Chris Jones back to the mix. Thank goodness he is back. So that will help our defense a little bit. The Lions had a really high-powered offense last season. So I'm interested to see how their offense will end up looking this season. But I do feel like our defense did a very good job even without Chris Jones and not allowing that many points against a high-powered offense last week. So yeah. I'm interested to see. And, Trevor Lawrence, he's a big man. He's a good quarterback. So he'll make some moves on you too.
Yeah, he can run better than he probably gets a lot of credit for. But I was looking at Pro Football Focus and some of the numbers for Trevor Lawrence. Last week in their 31-21 win over the Colts, on passes beyond 10 yards down the field, Trevor Lawrence was 8 of 12 for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns, including 3 for 3 on passes 20 yards or more down the field, ended up picking up just under 60 yards on those plays. But the other thing, Lexi, that jumped out to me about the game last week between the Colts and the Jaguars was the fact that the Colts, and granted, try to have takeaways from one game where there's so many matchup things going on, it's hard to do. And I just want to preface this by saying that. But the Colts only blitzed Trevor Lawrence twice on 35 dropbacks, which if you look historically throughout Trevor Lawrence's career, even with the game last year in the playoffs against the Chiefs, where the Chiefs blitzed him 11 times, he completed only 45% of his passes when you're sending pressure after him. Most quarterbacks aren't better under pressure, but when you blitz them, most of them will make you pay. And that's one part of Trevor Lawrence's game, if you're getting really picky, that he hasn't consistently hurt teams that are coming after him when they send extra guys. And when you have, like the Jags do, 3 wide receivers who can beat you. We've seen Christian Kirk against L'Jarius Sneed. Did not go well for L'Jarius Sneed in that regular season game 2 years ago. And then we know what Zay Jones can do. We saw the highlights this past week of what he was able to do. And I'm as high, if not higher, on Calvin Ridley than a lot of other people. So you have 3 legitimate weapons at receiver, very good running back in Travis Etienne, And then one of the most athletic, impressive tight ends in Evan Ingram, who was out there running hitch and goes last week against the Colts on cornerbacks and beating them down the line of scrimmage.
Ingram is such an underrated player too.
Yes.
I feel like he is not talked about nearly enough, and he's a fantastic route runner. He's a fantastic player. So, I mean, our defense is going to have their work cut out for them, hands down. And I don't know if you saw that one throw. I want to say it was in the first quarter where Trevor just tucked it in so tight to Calvin Ridley.
Yep.
It was almost like I had to watch it like 20 different times because I was like, I cannot believe he completed that.
Yeah.
Through those two, he made the defenders. I can't remember who the defenders were, but
Well, they got hurt. I know exactly
they fell right on
what
top
you're
of each
talking about.
other.
That's one of those like a crazy, dime, but at the same time, like, should he have thrown that ball?
Right.
There's so many defenders right there, but you got Calvin.
9 times out of 10, that's a pick.
Yeah, you throw it up and make good on it. I brought this up when I was speaking with Kendall Gammon and Sparks with 101 The Fox on the pregame show over there that, with Calvin Ridley and Doug Peterson, they're going to do we've seen Doug Peterson onside kick. We know they're going to be aggressive on fourth down to do all those things. But when you have, again, 3 legitimate weapons at wide receiver, a great tight end and a running back, and a creative offensive mind kind of leading the way, and one that is going to be aggressive. If I'm Steve Spagnuolo and you've got all those different weapons that you're going up against, I like when he gets aggressive. I like when he sends extra guys. It goes cover 0 because at worst case scenario, you're dictating to the offense where the ball is going. Depending upon where you're bringing pressure from, there are rules. And Andy Reid, the chess match, we all know what those are. And Steve Spagnuolo's portion of this going up against Trevor Lawrence, I'd rather them force the ball out of their hand and then go make a play than sit back and, again, let a creative offensive mind kind of dictate what they want to do. I'd hope they come out and be aggressive. We've seen it with Spags in the past. Normally it's later in the season when he starts dialing up a lot of that stuff. But this could be one of those games just because Trevor Lawrence does struggle against the blitz relative to other quarterbacks in the league. And
I feel like he was saying that in his press conference today. He's like, these first 2 games have been very high-powered offenses, and he can't really start out slow. He has to show some creative things right off the bat. And he was saying he wanted to. So I feel like we might see some different kind of packages that we don't usually see this early in the season, which hopefully doesn't come back to bite us later. But I wouldn't be surprised if the game turns into a shootout, which I don't like saying because I don't think it's necessarily saying anything about the Chiefs defense, especially they played really well against the Lions. They did. They're getting Chris Jones back. But we've seen this before with Andy Reid, and don't get lulled to sleep in that they come out, they struggle. The next week, it's clicking. Now, the only reason I would say that might not be the case compared to the situations in the past where after the Indy game, you had the Tampa Bay performance offensively. Then everybody, myself included, thought the regular season game going up against Nick Bosa and the 49ers that, hey, the Chiefs offense may struggle a little bit. And they didn't struggle at all. They always respond offensively. When you hear what Patrick Mahomes has said this week, saying got to be better. I mean, that messaging started at the end of the game in the locker room, most likely after the Lions game, that expect them to come out and play well. I don't think this thing's going to get into a shootout, but if it does, it might. I also believe Chris John's going to come out with his hair on fire. We get another year of there's so many storylines. We also have Travis Kelce back, hopefully. Well, maybe we don't know that for sure, I guess. But at the time that's a game changer.
The time they were recording, there had no updates as far as swelling in the knee after he's running around and doing all that stuff. But it's going to be a great matchup. We're excited for it. We appreciate everybody who's listening to this. Appreciate Lexi Osborn from the Kingdom Queens podcast. Make sure, again, check them out on Tuesday nights. Follow them on social media and make sure to subscribe to their YouTube channel. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
It's going to be interesting to see how that Chiefs defense can hold up against the Jags passing attack. Before we get on to more things to watch, we're going to take a quick break here, and then we'll be right back after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
All right, thank you for coming back. We got that. We got 2 things out of the way. Now we are off to Only Weird Games with Josh, and he is sitting down with Nate Taylor. They are going to talk to us a little bit about Isaiah Pacheco, his rushing attack, and how the Chiefs can do better in short yardage situations.
Thanks, Matt. Josh Briscoe, Nate Taylor from Only Weird Games here with you. It would be too normal if Seth was also here. So Nate and I will take it from here. Nate, as we look ahead to Chiefs-Jags, what is it that might be going a little bit under the radar, a burning question that you have that you'd like to get answered in week 2?
The production of the running game. Do we know the roles? There's a few things from the season opener that is a bit surprising or alarming, depending on your perspective, but
Josh, they said Isaiah Pacheco was the starter all training camp, all preseason, yet they gave the first 2 snaps to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So they need to give the starter touches, would be my opinion, which means that I'm fascinated to see if the Chiefs can be more efficient and more successful running the ball with Isaiah Pacheco as their lead back. So that means more than 10 carries, and can he get to that 4 yards per carry average that he had last year? And obviously, can they be successful in the red zone with him? The Chiefs struggle at times last year to get rushing touchdowns, but it would be nice for them to have the running game help open up the offense with us assuming that Travis Kelce is going to be on the field Sunday. What about you?
You use some of my favorite phrases when it comes to talking about the running game, because running the ball for the sake of running the ball is something we've largely kind of explained away in the modern NFL. But running the ball successfully and efficiently still matters, believe it or not. Even I believe that. Yes. And I'm running agnostic most of the time. But no, that's something I do certainly believe in. And something that you do hear from running backs all the time is what it means to be a back who can get into a little bit of a rhythm, not just like momentum in terms of being ready for the rep in, rep out as a running back who is going to have to move quickly, see and decide things decisively with an urgency and a violence, both that he is doling out, specifically Isaiah Pacheco, and the violence that he will receive there. It did feel disjointed. I mean, Seth talked about this in Only Weird Games on Monday, I think, talking about how still it kind of felt like a 4th preseason game in some of the rotations that the Chiefs had on offense. Never was that more evident, I think, than at running back, where you saw Clyde, Jerick McKinnon, and Pacheco all get on the field, but McKinnon was never really involved in the running game at all, and it wasn't efficient outside of Patrick Mahomes scrambling. So I think that's a really interesting spot to look. I'll go ahead and stretch it over also to those short yardage situations. If it's midfield or at the goal line, either way, I understand very obviously why it's of frustration to Chiefs fans. Say, hey, you've got a rocket ship offense. I think Mahomes said on Wednesday something like, hey, you can get 3rd and 7. You should be able to get 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 11, whatever it was that he said. And that makes a lot of sense to me. But it's not the way this works. I think fans can look at this and say, hey, guys, the hardest part of the NFL offensively, you figured out. Where's the easy button on 3rd and short? And I would at least like to have a definitive answer if we can get it. Is Isaiah Pacheco an easy button for 1 yard or 2 yards in most circumstances? And I'm not sure we've seen the Chiefs necessarily give him that opportunity yet.
Right. And it's probably a better option than Blake Bell under center or Blake Bell handing it off to Rashee Rice on a jet sweep when there's 11 guys on the line of scrimmage. So yeah, if you want to get a little bit more conventional, I understand that. If we assume that Andy Reid is never giving Patrick Mahomes the authorization to ever run a quarterback sneak, the best thing to do is probably get into a jumbo formation or an I formation and just let your interior offensive line and your running back get that yard. So it makes sense to me, Josh. It's just a matter of now, will the Chiefs actually show that on tape in a moment where, hey, possessing the football leads to points, which can lead to a victory.
You also mentioned that interior offensive line and that Rashee Rice, Blake Bell play that we've talked about plenty. If Trey Smith doesn't essentially whiff there, maybe Rashee Rice hits the corner, maybe that is a first down. The interior offensive line is not a unit that has gotten great push on some of those Blake Bell sneaks. We saw that be an issue in the preseason as well. So when we talk about running game, it's not just running back. It is that entire unit. So I'm also very, very interested to see how that shakes out. I'm also interested to see what everybody else in KCSN is thinking, so we'll kick it back to you, Maddie.
Thank you, Josh and Nate. Yeah, we have our eyes on that. The Chiefs need to get a little bit better in the run game, especially short yardage situations. So we got our eyes there, but we have something else to watch. We got another thing coming to you guys from outside the trenches with Tucker, Nick, and Brian Hanley. So we'll send it over to them for to talk about some trench play on both sides of the ball.
All right, thanks, Maddie. Outside the trenches here, we got the full crew, Nick Leckie, Brian Hanley. We are, not surprisingly, talking about the trenches as we're going to go inside the trenches on this edition of Outside the Trenches for 5 things. We're talking Chiefs and some Jacksonville Jaguars offensive lines. A lot of storylines going on with both of those groups. Big B, let's talk about last week. We wanted to talk about the tackles. and kind of what we wanted to see from them. What did you see from them last week and kind of some areas they can improve at?
First we got to work on Juwan Taylor getting pushed up onto the line of scrimmage, so he's not literally lining up in the backfield every snap. I don't know what's going on with that twitch thing that he does either. I was surprised they didn't call false start 10 times. Yeah. But either way, got to be more physical. Got to be more physical, man. There wasn't enough physicality. I know Detroit's got a good defensive line, somewhat. I mean, there's better defensive lines out there that they're going to face. They got to be more physical at the point of attack. It wasn't a great showing by anybody, by any means. So they can be better. I think they just have to be better. I think they got to be more physical, though.
Nick?
I think it's something where you look at like Donovan Smith, and I think he tried to do too much. You saw he was winding up at his punches. Yeah. And I think that kind of caught him off guard, like that one play where, Tooney bailed him out. But he's just trying to overperform. And it's like, man, just be smooth with your sets. Make sure that you're not trying to wind up on your punches, and just play 80%. Don't play 110%. It's a weird thing to say, but you have to calm down to go faster. You have to slow it down to speed it up. And to me, it's like I'd love the interior play. Like they got beat a couple of times, man. They were getting that work in and the inside, but they stayed with their men. It's like I coach my seventh graders. Stay with your guy and just run them by. And that's it. As long as you stay on him, give Patrick clean lanes, make sure he can step up and throw it, and you'll be just fine. But yeah, so I like what you said, Big B. Like as a referee, it's you have to just go to Juwan Taylor and be like, hey, you're jumping off sides. You're false starting. I'm going to call you next time you do it. Problem solved. That's it. Like how many refs had talked to you, right, Big B, right? Like, hey, if you just a little bit of coaching can help it a long way. And if you warn them, you don't feel as bad. Like, hey, I warned you. You're still doing it. Boom, flag. I don't feel any sympathy for you at all.
Yeah, because they're going to go to your coach, and the first thing that they're going to say is, hey, I told him I was going to call it if he kept doing it, and he did, so I called it. I gave it to him, and I told him that I was going to do it. It is what it is.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic when you talk about Juwan Taylor, where he was lining up. I think we started to see a lot of other teams start to do it too. They're like, okay, well, if this guy's going to do it, let's just see how far we can push it, how far we can push the boundary. As you guys mentioned, the Chiefs got out of there relatively healthy from the week one. That's what you like to see. Like to see guys get out of there healthy. Jacksonville Jaguars, on the other hand, not too healthy on their end, as Brandon Scherf left the game a couple times with an injury. They're also dealing with another injury to Luke Fortner. Two guys in their interior that could be a little bit tougher for those guys. As Chris Jones slated to come back into this game with a center and a guard both questionable with dealing with some injuries at least going into this game on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, this is an opportunity for the Chiefs D-line to get after. I thought the D-line actually played well last week. I thought they played well. And bringing back Chris Jones is only going to make it better. I think they got to ease him in. A lot of people will say, well, Nick Bosa played a lot of snaps for San Francisco last game. He just came back. The difference was, if you watch the game, the first 25 snaps, that's all there was in the first half that the Steelers even had. So that's way different than playing 25 snaps maybe in the first, and you get there in the second quarter. So I think they got to ease him back in, regardless of what he thinks or what he wants. Not thinks, but what he wants, because he's going to want to play every snap. You can't do that. That'll lead to an injury where he's out even longer. So, but as far as the Chiefs D-line, I think they're going to be able to get after him a little bit.
What do you think? And to me, I'm really looking at, like, if you're looking at like what's going to happen to me, is I was like when guys face their old teams, and you got Juwan Taylor's facing his old team in Jacksonville, and you're going to see, okay, was this dude the truth at practice, or were they getting after him in practice? Because usually it's like guys can get paid, but they were getting bullied at practice. So it's going to see these guys who are so intimate with each other, because you battle each other Wednesday through Friday, one-on-ones, middle drill, team drill, all these different areas where these people you're very, very familiar with them. So we'll see if Juwan Taylor, if they do anything to expose him. And to me, it's like I'll be watching him versus if Josh Allen lines up on his side or not, and those third mediums, second and longs, and see how that works out, because Josh Allen is that dude. I mean, he can get after you. And so we're about to find out if Juwan Taylor's worth that $80 million or not.
He's that real Josh Allen, as we like to say around these.
Exactly, right. Exactly.
The real Josh Allen. All right, that's going to do it for us here at Outside the Trenches. We're live every Wednesday at 9 p.m. If you want to hang out with us, come hang out with us. Maddie, let's send it back to you for more 5 things.
Yes, make sure you guys go hang out with Outside the Trenches every single week. Thank you guys. That's going to be super, super key to keep our eyes on. And we have one more big thing to watch. We have the 5th thing to still talk about for this week. But first, football is back in full swing with another week of epic games. And who's got you covered on the action for every single one of them? DraftKings Sportsbook, of course, an official betting partner of NFL. New customers can bet $5 on football and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Yeah, $5 for $200 in bonus bets. Nobody's missing out on the action this season. All DraftKings customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every day this September. Get in on the NFL Week 2 action with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use the code KCSN to sign up. New customers can bet just $5, take home $200 instantly in bonus bets. This is only on the DraftKings Sportsbook with the code KCSN. This is how the crown becomes yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net in New York. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for the problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. All right, after you get those DraftKings bets in, now it is time. We are heading over to our last big thing here. We are hanging out with Shawn Barber to figure out what he's got his eyes on for this big matchup with the Jaguars.
Well, this starting off just plain and simple, man. We played them very tough. They've been a hard opponent. Man, the last 2 times we played them, 27-17 here during the regular season last year, and then 27-20 in the playoffs. Both games were tight games, man, physical games, a lot of nicks and bruises, players going out. The one thing I acknowledge about the Jacksonville Jaguars is their team speed is phenomenal. So I've got a guest with me, Kevin Lockett. We're going to just break down some of the thoughts we have as far as things to know when it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars as we look forward to this game this week.
You know, you mentioned team speed, and that's one of the things in the last 3 years through the draft that they have done. They have put some very fast players on this team, and they've even done it through free agency. You look at Calvin Ridley, easily to see, very quick, very good team speed. Etienne at running back, but even on the defensive side, a lot of team speed. The other thing is they have a defensive mentality that's similar to like what Vrabel and the group has down in Tennessee. Very physical, hard hitting. Folks probably remember that's who knocked Patrick out with the ankle last year in the divisional championship. So, you know, we're not a team that's super deep at a lot of spots right now on offense. And so injury is always the great equalizer. And you get a team that's physical like they are, physical like the Lions were. That's something I think I'd be on the lookout for if I was Kansas City. This team's going to come in and they're going to be physical and they're going to hit and they're going to run around. And we haven't played them recently. This new Jacksonville team, we haven't played them in Jacksonville, and that's another factor that we have to take into account.
Tests on the road, they have some speed demons. Etienne is one of the fastest wide receivers. Fastest running backs I think in the league. Yeah. And with the resurgence of Calvin Ridley, like you said, man, he's back. He's a man on a mission.
Yeah.
He let it be known all off season that, you know, he feels like, you know, he missed the season. He's going to show y'all, he's show everybody that he's back. And Lawrence has been hitting him, man. He had a great first half of the first game of the season. Etienne and darted down the field a touchdown free and block about 40 yards down the field against the Colts. And I think overall, we just got to be very fundamental defensively to make sure we're accountable where everyone is. And don't, like you're saying, don't rest on your laurels. Don't think that because a guy runs into the flat, he can't turn it up. And, Lawrence is one of these quarterbacks who's looking downfield. He keeps his eyes downfield. He's a big-bodied quarterback, so he doesn't mind holding on to the ball, letting guys develop and for routes to come open late into the downs. And so defensively, we just got to be accountable for all of their playmakers all across the field. And then offensively, the Chiefs, we got to do our job. We got to protect 15. Got to protect him against a physical-minded team. They're going to roll on his ankles. They're going to roll around him. They're going to be at his feet. That's what they do defensively because they want to make sure they have a presence. That physicality is something they feel like they have to kind of make a statement each and every time they're around the quarterback. They want you to know, I almost got you. Even if I don't get you down, I'm going to still push you. I'm going to shove you. I'm going to let you know that I'm around and this pocket isn't going to be something that's really comfortable. So,
well, in the offense, don't get frustrated if, as a team, you don't come out with the wheels click right away, with everything clicking, right? You're down 0-1 from the Lions game. If things don't click right off the beginning, just relax and settle down. This is where the maturity of Kelsey and Mahomes and others will come into play. Chris Jones coming back will come into play because the last thing you want to do is start pressing. You start pressing, especially on the road, you start doing things that are uncharacteristic, and that's when we'll start to see, we like the no-look throws from Mahomes, but that's when he'll start throwing it backwards over his head, if he starts pressing.
Well, like Kevin said, man, pressure busts pipes. So you can't let that pressure get to you. Be a second-half team. Whatever we do, we know we're going to have to finish it in the second half and win the ball game. So, again, this is Shawn Barber from The Process, Kevin Lockett. This is a thing to know about the game.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate that from Shawn and Kevin Lockett. Thank you guys for giving the people something to watch and keep their eyes on for this game. So that's going to do it. Those are the big 5 things that we here at KCSN are ready to watch in this Chiefs-Jaguars matchup. So we appreciate you guys. Make sure, game day, 8:10 pregame show. It starts at 8 a.m. Central Time on Sports Radio 810 WHB, your home for the NFL. Make sure you tune in, catch the entire pregame show leading up to the start of the game. And then once the final whistle blows, make sure you come back. Come hang out with us for the KCSN postgame show. We're going to start 15 minutes after the final whistle. We got the postgame show coming in right at you. And this week, special guest Shawn Barber will be there. Yes, that's right. We got Shawn Barber in the house this week, so make sure you're there 15 minutes after the game. KCSN postgame show coming at you guys live on YouTube. It'll be anywhere you follow anybody as part of KCSN. It will be right there for you guys. Thank you. Go Chiefs this weekend.